Victim blaming. When a victim of a crime or maltreatment is held as wholly or partially responsible for the act committed against him or her. Common forms of victim blaming include negative social reactions from legal, medical, and mental health professionals, the media, family members, friends, and other acquaintances. It can be attributed to societal or individual misconceptions about victims, perpetrators, and the nature of violent or abusive acts.
It seems to me, first of all, from what I understand from doctors, that's really rare. If it's a legitimate rape, the female body has ways to try to shut that whole thing down. But
I think it skirts the issue that women are victims of violence all the time.
Should have guns.
And they could, well, maybe that or make better decisions.
Or no, learn to protect themselves.
I came to realize life is that gift from God, and I think even when life begins in that horrible situation of rape, that it is something that God intended to happen.
कोई भी चीज मैं मोटी भाषा बताऊं आपको, अगर कोई भी बच्चे का या किसी लड़की का शरीर कपड़ों के अंदर से दिखेगा तो उसमें उत्तेजना पैदा होगी.
I think that Kane made a mistake in the sense that we are beginning to understand the ubiquitousness of sexual harassment claims and how, because they're happening so often and they're everywhere, and many of them are inherently meaningless. They're done to safeguard, future, reputation damaging things. And
So anyway, these two girls come in from the suburbs and they get bombed and their car is towed because they're moronic girls and, they don't have a car. So they're standing there in the middle of the night with no car. And then they separate because they're drunk. They separate, which you never do. All right. Now Jennifer Moore, 18, on her way to college, she was 5'2", 105 pounds, wearing a mini skirt and a halter top with a bare midriff. Now again, there you go. So every predator in the world is going to pick that up at 2 a.m. She's walking by herself on the West Side Highway, and she gets picked up by a thug. All right. Now she's out of her mind, drunk. And the thug takes her over to New Jersey in the cab and kills her and rapes her and does all these terrible things to her.
You have this whole bureaucracy upon bureaucracy being built up with all kinds of levels of people to support women in the military who are now being raped too much.
Well, many would say that they need to be protected, and these sexual programs, abuse programs, are necessary.
That's
so
funny. I thought the mission of the Army and the Navy and Forest Services was to defend and protect us, not the people who were fighting the war.
Well, you certainly want the people fighting the war to be protected from anything that could be illegal.
Oh, look, that's a nice try, Eric. This whole question of women in the military has not been aired properly, and it's the great sleeping giant.
So let's talk victim blaming.
I think that there's probably nothing that can hinder a survivor's healing more than victim blaming.
Victim blaming is one of the worst things that can happen because it actively shifts the focus from a perpetrator to a victim.
For someone to have been through something so traumatic and then we make them feel, as a society, even worse about it is wrong.
Fundamentally, to me, it seems that behind this is a lack of empathy and ignorance.
Victim blaming implies that the victim is setting herself or himself up for abuse.
By drinking too much, by wearing something too provocative, or because of where they were.
I'm frustrated that we even have to say it's not your fault to survivors of sexual assault.
I hate that we're putting some responsibility on the survivor.
I mean, if I were to go get into my car, get in a car accident because someone ran a stoplight, no one would say you shouldn't have been driving in the first place. No one would say that, but for some reason, with something way more traumatic than that, we think it's okay to shift the blame.
Like, who are we to make a survivor feel like they should or shouldn't have done something?
Somehow, it's hard to believe that someone had no control, especially in our culture where we like to think control is something we all have.
Don't walk past big vans, or don't walk late at night by yourself, when sometimes you don't have a choice. You're somewhere, you need to be somewhere else, and it's nighttime, and you're gonna have to walk there, and somehow that's your fault. No, it's not your fault. and it was never your fault, and it's disgusting that we have made it even seem like it was your fault.
We don't reserve the right to blame them for that.
The sad part is that people who haven't been in situations like that more or less don't understand that it isn't an active choice that you made. It's something that happened to you.
No one asked for sexual assault to happen to them.
It just happens, and they couldn't do anything about it.
And it's especially hard whenever it comes to a male being the victim of sexual assault, which does happen.
People are so scared to come forward because they know that their peers or their parents or religious figures or people that have a lot more power are going to be questioning their actions instead of focusing on their perpetrator.
Another male was sexually assaulted because he lost control, because somebody had control over him. Just that in and of itself has so much stigma around it. You know, you should have been able to defend yourself. Aren't you a man? Don't you have the power to fight someone off? And then comes all these other attached notions of, well, I guess you're less than a man.
I think it's so important for people to, know how to protect themselves and stay out of harm's way in any situation. All people should know that. But to say it's my responsibility to control your actions is absolutely absurd.
No one ever wants sexual assault to happen. And by all means, I'm sure anyone, when faced with a situation, wants nothing more than to stop it. But there's a reason they couldn't. Because they didn't have power. It happens. Read a book. People don't have power all the time. And sometimes they are taken advantage of, and they lose a lot of their humanity in the process.
Okay, our culture today blames victims, it protects rapists, and it hides the real truth of sexual assault.
Our society tolerates rape and sexual assault. If instead of blaming the victim, we looked at the root of sexual assault, perhaps the cycle would end.
Makes me so angry that this is even a topic of discussion, that we have to make a video on victim blaming in our society, because that's an issue. We blame someone for something happening to them. It's crazy.
The key word is you're a survivor now.
They're survivors. They experienced something traumatic and survived.
And that's just what I wish we could do better. Acknowledging our survivors for moving forward, becoming stronger, and just being human to each other. Whether it's to males, females, it doesn't matter. Just be supportive and help those move forward who have been victims, because it's not their fault. That's what I think.
In the United States, out of every 100 rapes, 46 rapes get reported to the police. 12 rapes lead to an arrest. 3 rapes result in the rapist going to prison. And only about 2 rape cases are false reports. Who is society really protecting?